Hello, Bruce. Great to have you.
Good afternoon. Good morning from New York City.
Bruce, there has been a significant change after President Biden announced he's giving up. The spirits in the Democratic camp are very high, seem to be very high. The recent polls speak for them. But are these spirits too high, Bruce? And is it possible that we'll see another sharp turnaround in the sentiment?
There's a lot of days between now and November 5th. And so every day is an opportunity for Vice President to advance, another opportunity for Mr. Trump to find his footing. And the really interesting thing is who's going to make the first big mistake. So we'll find out. A lot of time.
Do the Republican ticket still have a possibility to turn this?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This is still a horse race. This is still a very close election. President Biden had fallen way behind, and so it is. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of ground to be covered. The signs are good, and the polls are trending well. But again, there's whatever it is, 80-something days left, and that's a long time. A lot of things can happen. External events, the Middle East becomes more complicated, Ukraine becomes more complicated, something else, and could change the nature of the conversation around the U.S. So we'll see. But right now, I'm optimistic.
Let's get to those important points for Americans. What is your opinion? Which group will be decisive in the next coming months? It has been said, for example, that the women has a very important role in this election.
This is a real inflection point in history, and women have the opportunity to at last sort of seize control of the conversation. No candidate in the United States can be elected without women's vote. And the rights and privileges of women are under attack by Republicans. I don't know why, it doesn't make sense, but they are. And so if women will come out and vote to protect the rights they have already earned, and therefore looking forward to their own rights and the rights of their daughters going forward, this could be a really important turning point in the history of politics in America. It's really important. But women are going to have to come out and vote, and they're going to have to vote for Vice President Harris, even if they don't necessarily agree with all of the Democratic political points. It's really about the rights of women going forward. I want to remind people, they've probably forgotten, or maybe they don't remember, that it was only in 1974 when women in the United States got the right to have a credit card or open a bank account without the consent of their husband. 1974, and that seems crazy. But again, the Republican Party, for whatever reason, is not just attacking issues of abortion, but they're also attacking in vitro fertilization. They're attacking women's privileges and rights across a wide spectrum. So this is a really important moment for women and for democracy. But it is in the hands of women to control.
Just a second, Bruce. Ihan vaan tähän. Anteeksi, että mä en alussa sanonut, mutta me vedetään tämä kokonaan nyt englanniksi. Mä en ryhdy tässä sitä kääntämään, koska se on niin monimutkaista. Tämä on epäreilua niille, jotka ei välttämättä ihan kaikkea ymmärrä. Mä voin vähän vetää tuossa lopussa sitten yhteen. Bruce, does that mean the decisive role of the women that the abortion will be a one big theme in these coming months?
It's a huge piece of the conversation. But it's important to remember it's not just abortion. The Republicans would love to frame it as abortion because it's a very complicated conversation. But it's more than that, right? I mean, the Republicans are also attacking things like in vitro fertilization, which is, they want to have kids, but they don't want you to have kids. They're attacking women's rights across a wide range of places, and so that if and what you've only seen the beginning, if the Republicans return to power, you're going to see a real erosion of women's rights and privileges in the U.S. and fixing that will take a long time. So it's not just abortion; it's the acknowledgement that women have to be treated and are entitled to be treated, of course, is exactly the same as men in society, and they are still not.
We in Europe are, of course, interested what kind of foreign and security policy the becoming president will do. But before I ask about that, it's always said at the end, the Americans decide who's going to be the next president. It's their how much money, how the economy will go, what they will earn, and so on and so forth. Will this be the economy? How much money each American will have? Will this be also this time a decisive thing?
Very much so. The economy is although the economy is robust, the problem has been what's been branded as inflation, and that's really sort of it's not true. It's more about corporations becoming they're far more profitable at the expense of the consumer. But let me give you an example of why this is a hot topic. If you take a family of four, today, for them to buy groceries, the exact same groceries as they did a year ago, it costs $11,000 more per year, about 9,000, 10,000 euros more for a family of four to eat exactly the same way they did a year ago. That's an immense amount of money of inflation. And this is a big issue, and there's going to have the Democrats are going to have to really show that they're going to get a handle on that. That it is, it's not just about corporations being successful, and I'm not against that, but there has to be, a shared, appropriate sharing of profits and livability, and that's not the case right now. So the economy is a very, very hot topic for most people in the U.S.
Then the foreign policy, security policy. We know already quite a lot about the foreign policy of Donald Trump, but we don't know much about Ms. Harris. What kind of, if she wins, what kind of foreign policy, what kind of relations towards Europe we should expect?
Right. So I think there are three major foreign policy issues. First and foremost in the minds of Americans, by the way, is the border, is immigration, which is a problem which Europe is wrestling with as well. And it's a very, very hot topic in the U.S. and how Vice President Harris handles that conversation is going to be very important. The other two hot topics, of course, are Ukraine, the Middle East, and I suppose it would put in that basket would be NATO. If Vice President Harris is elected, you're going to see a continuity in the U.S. support, of course, for NATO. That will not change. I don't think you could say the same for Donald Trump. He seems to have a problem with NATO I can't comprehend. As to Ukraine, Vice President Harris, I think you'll see a continuity in the current policy, current policy of supporting Ukraine's efforts to defend itself. The Republicans represent a more isolationist policy. And Americans, again, on the home front, they don't understand. It's very difficult to say, look, you pay more for groceries. You can't afford to buy a house, but we have endless billions to give to the government of Ukraine. It's a faraway place. And for Americans, they don't understand necessarily why they're there. The same could be said about the Middle East. It's an incredibly complicated issue, and there's plenty of blame to go around for all sides. But from an American perspective, for the average American, they just approved another $20 billion of weapons sales, for example, to Israel. And there are two problems with that. One is there's a lot of Americans who don't think that's an appropriate thing to do. And the others are going, well, if you've got $20 billion just to give away to Israel, what about us? What about our schools? What about our roads? What about inflation? What about healthcare? And so I think writ large, Vice President Harris there'll be a lot of continuity in terms of support for NATO, which is critically important. there'll be a greater understanding of the United States' role in Ukraine and also in the Middle East. But this is a hot button for a lot of Americans. Ukraine and the Middle East are places that are far, far away. And Americans, a lot of the average American feels that their own basic needs, home ownership, education, healthcare, those sorts of things, they're not being taken care of. And they have hard to understand, why are we taking care of other problems with such costs when we're not taking care of our own with their basic needs.
All right. Thank you very, very much, Bruce. It was great to have you here. Great to hear your insights to the American politics. We wish you a great day there in New York. And one more time, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Nice to talk to you all.